So hello everyone. Today, polity is basic. मतलब if you go to the M Lakshmikant of polity, you will see कि there are a lot of things, and basically what I did कि I just made notes out of them, and it's kind of my revision time. So basically the pattern of reading polity. So when I was preparing, when I was preparing, so what I learned about different people, they said ki like you should go with some different definite pattern, so, which can generate your interest, right? So out of that interest pattern, what I think, like normally what we hear around us, president, prime minister, what they are doing, council of ministers, what they are doing. So considering that there is some pattern, like president is somewhat kind of similar to governor of a state. President of country is somewhat similar to governor of a state. Similarly, prime minister is similar to kind of CM, and then council of minister is same in both, like central council of ministers functionalities are kind of similar to states council of ministers, right? So this was the kind of pattern, like when you learn things, then you should kind of relate what they exactly mean, and based on that, once you learn all these things, then you can see what are the relation between the center and the state, where are their powers different, what extra does union more uh, in their plate, which they can perform more, and where they hold control above the state. And then, so this was the basic pattern. So today I will be starting with president. I'm just doing it. So it goes like ठीक है. So now I'll be revising. Okay. So president, this comes basically in the part fifth of the constitution. So like as far as I remember, part one is regarding the what is that? I actually part one is second one is citizen. I think part one is about the unions, right? What are what is India and all those things, what is India, the union federation of states, that thing is there. Part second is about getting citizenship of India. Part 3 is about the fundamental rights which are bestowed upon the citizens of India. Part 4 is about the DPSPs, the directive principles of state policy, which is about basically the basically the things which will govern, not govern, which will give the idea to the governments, the way they should govern the people. So that DPSP, basically these are directive principles following which all governments should try to focus more on in their governmental policies. So these are basically the DPSPs, and then the fifth part comes about this executive thing, the president, the parliament, the executive, the judiciary, and then the state, and so on. So basically, this president part comes in the part fifth of the constitution. If I talk about the articles, the article 52 to 78 comes in the president section, which deals with the union executive, president, council of president, vice president, prime minister, council of minister, and the like CAG and attorney general of India, and all those things, like how the parliament functions, and all those things deals with the president. President is nothing but the kind of considered as the first citizen of the country. That's the symbol of unity, integrity, and solidarity of the nation. Now coming to the second part, how election of president happens. So it happens indirectly by the proportional representation method, where so the question comes ki who actually vote for the presidential elections, right? So the people who are considered for voting, they are the elected members of Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, basically MPs, elected members of the state assemblies, as well as the MLAs of Delhi and Puducherry. So basically, when I say this Pondicherry MLAs, when I talk about MLAs, they are the legislative assemblies members, not the MLCs. So the pattern is like single transferable vote. That means ki, let's say I give, there are two candidates, I give vote to candidate one, and somehow we see that no one is going to get majority, so we'll see who's the last number, right? So we will see who is the last number. We will so okay, then we will see the second preference of the votes of the people in that ballot, and the second preference of ballot will be added to the all the candidates over there, and then we'll see who's getting the majority. This is something kind of that way. So secret ballot it happens, and then there is some value of the vote of MLA. That is some simple formula. I don't think so it will be kind of used, but again, so it will be like, if we talk about the MLA, who is the member of legislative assembly, it will be the total population of the state upon total number of MLAs in the state into 1 by 1000. And for the total value of the vote of the MP, it is like total value of votes of MLAs of all states upon total number of elected members of parliament. So that is so to get the majority, the electoral quota needs to be the total number of valid votes polled upon 1 plus 1. So basically here, as the seat is 1, that's why 1 plus 1 is happen. Otherwise, the base number of seats, it will be there, like 2 plus 1 can happen if seats are 2, and just 1 vote more than they need to get the electoral quota. So the process of transfer of votes happens till one candidate gets required quota, because if one doesn't get majority, then the second preference is being allotted to all the candidates, right? So basically, कुछ भी doubt या dispute है, that will be handled by the Supreme Court, and elections का result that cannot be cancelled or challenged just by saying that electoral college complete नहीं था. अगर if election को invalid declare कर दिया गया by Supreme Court, then all the acts done by the parliament before that, they will not be considered like invalid. They will be in function. Indirect election का मतलब, because president is just the nominal head and direct election is costly, right? So if we see that present system, the president is kind of representative of union as well as the state. How we say that? Because MLAs and MPs both are voting, right? So both cases are there. PR was proportional representation system is most of the times objected, because people say ki because currently we have only 1 seat, right, for president. So people say ki it is more useful when there are multiple seats. That's logical also. And then we say ki it's single transferable vote. But if ideally see, if no person gets majority, then the second preference votes are given to all the people who got second preference. So it's not kind of single transferable vote, because people get multiple vote choices, right, by preference in the preferences option. Now, coming to the qualification of president. So he should be a citizen of India, age of 35, and he should be able to be a member of the Lok Sabha. That is one thing. And that shouldn't be holding any office of profit under the state government, central government, or any municipalities or any panchayat thing, the local authority, public authority. For the nomination of the president, he should be supported by 50 proposers plus 50 electors as seconders. Like they should proposing the name. This guy should stand for president. Security deposit of 15,000 happens in the RBI, and it gets forfeited if it doesn't get 1/6 of the votes. Okay. Oath is administered to the president, and that is administered by the Chief Justice of India or the senior most judge of the Supreme Court. What is the oath? To faithfully execute the office, to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of India, to devote himself to the service and well-being of the people of India. That's the oath of the president. What's the condition? The condition of the president's office: neither be the member of the House of the Parliament or the state legislatures. No holding of any office of profit apart from the president, right? And he's entitled to the use of his office, residence, emolument, allowance. All these things are there, and these emoluments and allowance, they cannot be diminished against, like if it's 5 lakh, it cannot be come down to 3 lakh, right? Diminished during his term of office. And also some social immunity is also being given from the legal liability for his official acts. So he's also immune from the criminal proceedings, even for his personal acts. So he can't be arrested till he's president, right? Not be arrested, not be imprisoned. After 2 months notice, civil proceedings also can be initiated against him. In 2018, by the Parliament Act, salary of president was increased from 1.5 lakh to 5 lakhs, yes. And then pension was like 50% of the salary. Okay. Term, if we talk about the term of the president, 5 years, he gets 5-year terms. He can be elected multiple number of times, not like USA, where president can be elected only for 2 terms. Impeachment can also happen for the president on the basis of violation of constitution, right? So when this motion can be basically initiated by any house of the parliament, and when it's initiated, it should be signed by 3/4 of the members of the house present. After that, who framed it, after that 14 days notice is given to president. After that, then the resolution is passed in that particular house. If two-thirds of the members of that house approve that, then it's sent to other house. Then they check, the investigate the charges, what charges are against him or her, and if they also approves these are the right charges, then they can again for then they have to vote. If two-thirds of members vote for them, then president gets impeached. So if we see here, what's the difference? When in the starting, the members of the parliaments and members of the legislature assemblies were voting, elected members, right? Only elected members are voting. But in impeachment motion, even nominated member can participate in the impeachment process of the president. Elected members of state legislature assembly not allowed. And the Union Territory of Delhi and Puducherry are also not allowed in the impeachment of the president. So only the members of the parliament and the members of the only the members of the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha parliament, they are allowed to impeach even the nominated as well as elected. But for election, only elected members of the parliament. In what cases vacancy can happen in the president's office? When he's resigned, when his death happened, when he's impeached, when his expiry of tenure, when he become disqualified to hold the office of the president. Like Supreme Court said, this is not good, right? To prevent the interregnum, like if let's say he's not there in the post, or he is impeached, then for that period, president not in case of impeachment, if let's say his tenure is over, right? So for that in between period, an election didn't happen, so he can continue to be president for 5 years election. For other cases, vice president acts as the president, and election to be held within 6 months. If vice president is not there, the Chief Justice of India can hold the office or the Senior Judge of the Supreme Court hold the office of the president, and during that time they get all the allowances and everything which president gets. What are the powers and functions of the president? If I talk about executive powers, so he is the kind of all the executive actions of the union government are taken on his name. So, right, basically he is the union head as well as the federal head also, because MLAs are also appointing him, not appointing him, electing him, right? So he appoints the PM and other ministers, the Attorney General of India, CAG, other election CAG, Chief Election Commissioner, other election commissioners, chairman and members of UPSC, chairman and members of Finance Commission, all these things he appoints. All the executive actions of the union are taken on his name. He can seek for any info relating to the administration and the legislative proposals from the PM. PM has to provide them. He can appoint a commission to look into the rights to investigate the conditions of the scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, and the other backward classes. He directly administers the union territories via administrator. He appoints the administrator who directly administers the union territories. Also, he can appoint interstate council to promote center-state and interstate cooperation. Interstate council he can appoint. He can declare any area as scheduled area, and has powers with respect to the administration of scheduled areas or tribal areas. He has those powers. So this comes to the executive powers of the president. When we come to the legislative powers, so he can summon or prorogue or dissolve the parliament, the Lok Sabha. Sorry, not the parliament, only the Lok Sabha, because Rajya Sabha is the permanent house of the parliament, right? So he can summon, prorogue, or even dissolve the Lok Sabha. He can summon or prorogue parliament and even dissolve the Lok Sabha. Basically, summon and prorogue are temporary words. So parliament can be summoned or prorogued by president, but in case of dissolvement, it's like permanent dissolvement. That's why only Lok Sabha is being mentioned over there. He can also summon for the joint sitting of the houses, both houses. He can address parliament on the commencement of the new government and also the first day of the every first session of the every year. He can also appoint any member to preside over the meetings, of the parliament when the speaker or chairman is not there. Office gets falls vacant. He appoints 12 members to Lok Sabha. This we need to check because there might be some provision, might be some act, so which he cannot appoint the 12 members to the Lok Sabha. He appoints and sometimes he nominates from the fields of literature, science, art, and social services. He can promulgate ordinances when parliament is not in session. Lok Sabha is not in session, but approval needed once they come back to session within 6 weeks. He lays report of the CAG, UPSC, Financial Commission, and also the commissions which is set for the investigation of the Supreme Court, scheduled caste, scheduled tribes, and OBCs. Also, there's a report of them also in the parliament. He can make regulations to he can make regulations for peace, progress, and good governance of UTs like Andaman Nicobar, like all the UTs. He made regulations for peace, progress of the good. In case of Puducherry also, because Puducherry has legislature assembly, right? So in case of, but that is UT also. So in case of Puducherry, he can legislate by making regulations, but only when assembly is not assembly is dissolved or suspended. So he also decides on the question of the disqualification of the MPs, but in consultation with the Election Commission of India. These are the legislative powers of the president. Now, coming to the financial powers. Money bills can be introduced only on his prior recommendation, can be introduced in the parliament and specifically in the Lok Sabha. Financial statement, the annual financial statement is laid on the parliament only on his approval. He causes it. There is no demand for grant can be made without his prior recommendation. He can make advances to the contingency fund of India to meet any unforeseen expenditure. He constitutes the financial commission which recommends the distribution of the revenues between states and the center. These are his financial powers. Coming to judicial powers, so he appoints the chief justice and judges of Supreme Court and High Court, and also he appoints the chief justice of Supreme Court and High Court, and also judges of the Supreme Court. He can seek advice from the Supreme Court on any question or any question of law or fact, but not binding on the Supreme Court. He can grant pardon, reprieve, respite, and remission of punishment or suspend, remit, or commute the sentence of any person. So he can basically pardon any person when the punishment is related to the union law, offense of union law, or the court martial is or sentence of death. Then he can pardon that punishment, right? So he can pardon the punishment. Okay, these are the judicial powers of the president. Now going diplomatic powers, all the international treaties and agreements are done on his behalf, and Parliament approval is needed, but done on his behalf. Military, he is the supreme commander of the defense forces of the India and appoints the chief of all the all the defense forces. Yes, in case of emergency, the constitution confers extraordinary powers with president to deal with the national emergency, which is article 352, president's rule, which is article 356, and financial emergency, which is article 360. So special power is invested on the president. Now coming to the veto powers of the president, right? So veto powers are basically to prevent the hasty and ill-considered legislation by the parliament, right? To prevent any legislation which may be unconstitutional. So if president feels like this is not good for the people, then he can good for the people or unconstitutional or breaching the fundamental right of any person, then he can kind of use his veto powers. So basically, president has three vetoes: absolute veto, that means he can withhold the consent to any bill, withhold the assent to any bill; suspensive veto, which he can suspend for some time, but it can be overridden by the legislation, by the he returns back some bill to reconsider, but if they again reconsider and say it's fine, then he has to approve it. And then pocket veto, he basically takes no action on the bill which is came to him, and he even doesn't have to follow any timelines. In absolute veto, this is basically exercise when it is kind of private members bill, so he will basically reject the bill, withhold his assent, I actually can't rectify it, so it's withhold. I'll look into it. And then let's say when there is some government right, and they pass some bill, it came to president, and the next day the government falls, right, and the new government comes and they say to use the absolute veto and reject that bill, then he can use this absolute veto. For example, in PEPSU, it was in 1954. Like initially, it was president rule. Some bill came, and he was he was going through this, and then the government formed, and then they said not needed. So he just used this absolute veto and didn't rectify that bill. So this case happened, and also one case happened in 1991. When he used his absolute veto. In suspensive veto, when he returns a bill to the reconsideration of the parliament, so basically it goes back to the parliament, and if they like it, then he has to approve it. In money bills, he doesn't have suspensive veto, basically, because money bills start only from prior approval of the president, that's why. And normally, yes. So pocket veto, he simply keeps the bill pending for an indefinite period. Constitution doesn't define the timeline within which president has to approve. So that's why he uses his pocket veto. But in US, there's just a pocket veto for 10 days only. So, for example, in 1986, the president was Jal Singh. He exercised pocket veto on India Post Office Amendment Bill, which was by Rajiv Gandhi, which was to curb the freedom of the press. So he just used his pocket veto and didn't approve that bill. In 1989, there is R. Venkataraman. He sent back the reconsideration, and but National Front government dropped the bill. So he actually didn't use to send back for reconsideration. So basically, that's kind of suspensive to right hand. 24th Constitutional Amendment Act 1971 that made it compulsory for the president to ratify the constitutional amendment bill. So basically there are three types of bill which comes in the parliament. One is the ordinary bill, which doesn't involve with money or anything. Second is the money bill, financial statement. Third is the constitutional amendment bill. So constitutional amendment bill are like which modify the constitution, right? So in case of constitution amendment bill, president only has two options. President has only one option. If it is approved by the parliament, then president has to ratify it. In case of money bills, president can only ratify the bill or withhold his assent or reject. That means he reject. He can reject the bill, but he cannot return the bill because it initially initiated with the assent of the president. When I talk about ordinary bills, it can only be ratified. It can be ratified. In case of ordinary bill, it can be ratified. It can be rejected. It can be returned also. That's the suspensive veto, and they can reconsider, and then it comes back again to the president. For state legislation, governor has three choices. All the three choices like of us, and also the fourth choice where he reserves the bill for the consideration of the president, right? So then after it comes to the president also for all the state related bills. Yes, and state legislature cannot override the veto power of the president. So if president withholds anything, then state legislature actually can't do anything. Now I come to the ordinance making power of the president. So if I talk about the ordinance making, it comes in the Article 1 to 3. He can promulgate any ordinance when both of the houses of parliament are not in session, or both are not in session, or even one of the houses are not in session. So he can make any ordinance only when he is satisfied that the circumstances exist that render it necessary for him to look into that matter, need his immediate attention, right? In Cooper's case, which happened in 1970, Supreme Court said that president's satisfaction can be questioned in a court on the ground of malified. 38th Council of Amendment Act 1975, like around emergency it was there. So that made the president's satisfaction that final and conclusion outside the scope of the judicial review. But 44th Amendment, which happened in 1978, that deleted that argument because that can be judicially reviewed. So that was there. So every ordinance must be laid before both houses of the parliament when it reassembles, and within 6 weeks it has to be approved by both of the houses of the parliament. If I say 6 weeks, in the house, if any house joins later, only from that period it will be counted in the 6 weeks. If they don't approve it, that ordinance will cease to exist, right? So basically it's not a direct discretion of the president. He can promulgate or withdraw any ordinance only on the advice of the Council of Ministers headed by him, right? Ordinance can be retrospective as well. That means it may come into force from a back date as well, right? So it can alter any law as well as any tax law as well as, but it can also start on the back date. We are Ambedkar said that this retrospection feature, this is made to tackle an unforeseen situation. Okay, look into this. So rules of Lok Sabha, they require whenever a bill seeking to replace an ordinance is introduced in the house, then they need to give the statement explaining the circumstances that led to the immediate legislation of ordinance. Okay, why that ordinance was put in passed by the president. Then they have to give the reasons, right? The Supreme Court on DC Vadva case, the 1987, the successor. So in DC Vadva case 1987, what happens? We look at an example of Bihar where one ordinance was in repeating order. So successive pre-promulgation of ordinance with the same text without any attempt to get it passed into the without any attempt to get the bills passed. That happened. So that was a see. Why are you using that thing, right? Because you don't want to get it passed. That means you're just using. You're not assenting with the legislative assembly's thing, right? It is their job, not the governor's job. So it's kind of violation of constitution, and ordinance can be struck down on in these situations. This is one thing. So now I come to the pardoning power of the president. This is the executive power, basically, not judiciary power. Article comes in the Article 72. So president can pardon on three cases: if his offense is against the union law, if he has done any court martial case, or if there is sentence of death. So in these cases, he can pardon the people, pardon the person, the convicted. So basically, to keep the door open for correcting any judicial error in the operation of law, and to afford relief to any person who thinks that the punishment is too harsh or rude for that. So he can remove both the sentences and the conviction. And then comes the commutation things. Commutation is what? Like from the commutation is, if we talk about generally, from one place to other place we are going. So basically, he can the substitute of one form of punishment from other. So from one punishment to other punishment he can give. Commutation he can give. Remission, he can reduce the period of the sentence without changing its nature. Punishment is same. Let's say for it was 10 years, it will be given to 5 years. He can also respite. He can respite. That means he award a lesser sentence in place of the originally awarded due to some special fact. Let's say he is a person with disability, he is women. So he is women in sense pregnant women. So he can respite that the sentence. He can reprieve. That means he can put a stay on the execution of a sentence for a temporary period. He can do that. Similar thing, Article 161, governor has the same power, the pardoning power. If any person is convicted of any offense against the state law, you can just pardon his conviction. What is the difference? The president can pardon sentences in case of court martial as a union law, right? And president can pardon for death sentences as well. But yes, but governor can only suspend, reprieve, remit, or commute these kind of sentences. Following guidelines, basically, a petitioner has no right. It will not be like oral hearing. It's not like the same procedure as the Supreme Court. This petitioner has no right for oral hearing. President can examine the evidences afresh. He has the power to be exercised by press only in advance of the Union Cabinet. He is not bound to give the reason, not subjected to judicial review except if President decision is arbitrary malafide. Basically, judicial review is higher, right? Because the judicial like right malafide, then they can look into it. Okay, what's happening? When if one time he has not approved the that petition, then it cannot come. Other time you can put the same petition again, right? President is basically the symbol of the nation. He represents the nation but doesn't rule the nation. If we talk about the constitutional position of press, so Article 53, if I talked about part 4, Article 52 something, Article 53 is about the executive power of the union shall be vested in the president and shall be exercised by him with advice of the officers subordinate to him in accordance with the constitution, right? So executive power of the union shall be vested in the president and shall be exercised by him either directly or through the officers subordinate to him in accordance with the constitution. Article 74, what is it? That there shall be a council of ministers with PM as head to aid and advise the president, who shall in exercise of his functions act in accordance with their advice. And then there is Article 75, which council of ministers will be directly responsible to the Lok Sabha, will be collectively responsible to the Lok Sabha. 42nd Council Amendment Act 1976, which made the president need to be bound to the advice given by the Council of Ministers headed by PM. 44th Council of Amendment 1978, the president can ask them for reconsideration, but still he has to bind by the advice given by the Prime Minister. It's given. In 1997, Cabinet recommended K.R. Narayanan, who was the president, to impose president's rule in UP, Article 352. President sent for reconsideration and cabinet cancelled. So basically the president's rule was not put there in UP. In 1998, president's rule was put in Bihar. It's the same cabinet advice, same time, same thing again. So basically president has no ultimate discretion. He is bound by the Council of Ministers, which is headed by PM, right? So basically the PM has the majority, right? In which cases president has the ultimate right. So in cases where appointment of PM, when no majority in Lok Sabha happened, then president can ask the majority leader to come and prove your majority, right? Then he has some discretionary power. Dismissal of council of minister when the council of when council of ministers hasn't proved its confidence in the Lok Sabha. Dissolution of the Lok Sabha, if the council of minister has lost its majority, they can do it. And then president has the ultimate power. These are the things which are related to the president. I think I covered all of them mostly. So yes, that's it, guys. Thank you.